Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Saath podcast, ASR's newest initiative where we talk about substance use disorders within the context of the Punjabi community.
Through inviting mental health experts, researchers, community members, and those with lived experiences, we discuss everything from the history of addiction to the lived realities of Punjabi families alongside providing relevant resources.
We are your hosts. I'm Ravia. I'm a community organizer and researcher from Edmonton.
I'm Manvinder, a social work PhD student from Winnipeg.
I'm Harleen, and I'm a medical student and anthropologist from Indiana.
I'm Harpreet. I'm a clinical researcher and an epidemiologist from Toronto. Thanks for joining us, and let's start the conversation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next episode from the Asara Saath podcast. Today, we have joining us is Sunny Chopra. Sunny Chopra is a mental health speaker, life coach, and podcast host based in British Columbia. In his various roles, Sunny often refers to his personal journey with anxiety, societal pressure, and alcohol in shaping the way he approaches his own mental health and work with others today. Presently, Sunny speaks at community events, hosts workshops, and runs a South Asian healing podcast where he shares real conversations about mental health, coping habits, and sobriety. His goal is to create spaces where people feel safe to open up instead of feeling like they have to handle things in isolation.
Sunny, welcome. We really appreciate you being here. Sunny was actually one of the first people that reached out to us, and we love it when community wants to get engaged, so we really appreciate you.
First of all, thank you. I really appreciate that introduction and also giving me the time and space to be on this platform to talk about this topic, a topic you know, at one point would have never even said out loud, let alone on a podcast. I'm really looking forward to it because I feel like this journey is really important to share because I feel like a lot of people struggle with it. And I hope today that I can bring some light to that and help reduce the stigma on alcohol usage in our community.
Okay, awesome. That was actually a perfect segue into our first question. So, for my first question, where do you think your journey to where you are now began? So, it's a big question, but wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, for sure. Everything you mentioned was never the plan to do all those things and be all those things. It's just because I went through my own struggles growing up in a single parent household. Parents divorced when I was young. I got bullied. I got picked on. I really struggled with self-esteem, self-worth as a result of all of that. So I didn't really have a lot of high hopes for myself, nor did a lot of people around me. And as I got older, I did end up eventually going to university and being successful on the outside, getting that degree, making that money. But it was like around my mid 20s where I felt like something was still off. And I ended up going to therapy, and a lot of what I had faced in childhood started to come up, and I worked through that. And then that's when I truly felt healed, and I felt like I knew who Sunny actually was. It took me about, at that time, 29 years to figure out who he was. And I just realized, damn, I'm sure there's so many people, especially men, who go through this and think that, hey, like, this whole life is. You just gotta shut up, tough it up. And I was like, it doesn't have to be lived this way. And one of the things I used a lot, and I didn't know at the time, was alcohol to cope with a lot of the pain I was going through. Because I think with a lot of people, it starts out at a party celebration thing, and that's what I thought. That's what I would tell myself, like, I'm just drinking because I had a long week, or I'm celebrating, or it's this person's birthday, it's this person's event. The sun is out, I'm gonna drink, right? So it's like all these things you tell yourself, but little did I know that it was a coping mechanism. But really, as to answer the question, is I really didn't know that I'd be in this kind of work, but it really truly fulfills me to help people change their lives like I would live to change mine.
Yeah, I think us even being podcast hosts, I think we don't ever think that we're going to end up in the places that we do, but somehow we end up here. And I think it's also great that we're able to come together on such a common topic. So you mentioned a few different things. What do you think was your turning point in terms of, okay, this is not something that's not sustainable for me. My life's just not going the way that I want it to. What was that kind of aha moment for you where you're like, I need to make this change?
Honestly, I stumbled upon therapy, and the reason is it was during COVID times. I was really overwhelmed and stressed out at my job, and being in human resources, I knew about the employee assistance program, and I was like, hey, maybe why don't I talk to a therapist about my work stress? And I think at the time, I think for everyone, it's easier to talk about work stress, right, than our own stress. So I was like, okay, I'll talk to this therapist, see how things are. Within 5 minutes, we went into my childhood, and At first, I was very resistant because I was like, why does my childhood even matter? What does it have to do with me now? Look at me, I'm successful. I overcame the odds. I came from a broken home. Why do I need to go there? But then as we dove into the sessions, a lot of the signs that the therapist was mentioning were showing up in my day to day, right? Like feeling insecure, or having random bouts of anxiety, sadness, anger, uh, feeling very small. All these things were stemming from how I felt in childhood, but I didn't know they were playing a part in my day to day. I just summed it up to that, Sunny, that's just how you are. You're very you just overthink too much. That's what I thought. So when I went to therapy and I started working on a lot of this, my kind of mindset with alcohol was I'm just using it as a celebration. It's not that big of a deal. It was never like a true rock bottom I hit. There was times when I was close, but really, what it was, and we can dive into more how I got there. But I just reached a point where it's like you outgrow a friend, and you're just like, okay, because we have history, like I'll be respectful and I'll keep you with me, but I don't think we have the same values. We don't align anymore. We don't have the same interests. I got to a point where I don't get it. Why does someone like me who learns about this stuff, teaches people about coping mechanisms, healthy, positive um, habits, and believing in yourself, why does someone like me continue to use alcohol as a coping mechanism? It just doesn't line up with who I am anymore. And it was just really, I realized it was taking away from who I wanted to be as a person. It was damaging a lot of my relationships, and it wasn't fun. It was just like every week. My Sunday would be my rest day, but it's really a hangover day. Monday and Tuesday, I was just so out of it. I would never book meetings on those days. And then it just became like a constant like cycle of is this really the way I want to live? This is too much. And um I had experimented with, at least for a year and a half, I had experimented with drinking on a part-time basis. So drinking maybe once every 2 months or once every month or special occasions. And I'd be okay for a while, but the time, the effort and thinking that was involved in that willpower, it was fun. And it was only a matter of time before it would happen again where I would either drink too much, black out, or maybe something was going on with me that week that when I started drinking, I was like, oh man, it's been such a rough week. I want to drink more. So it was just like I had finally accepted, Sunny, you got a problem with this. It's time to move on. That was the biggest thing for me. And there was a little bit of it's not fair. How come some people can have a few drinks? Like I have friends that are able to do that. They can have 4 beers and they're good. That's it. And they're always been able to do that. Why can't I? So I would always try to like I can do this. I can take this challenge on. But then I got to a point where is it a challenge I even want anymore? Is it like something I want to embrace? And like someone even asked me like, do you feel like you gave up? And I'm like, no. I'm like, think of it this way. If you were in a relationship and it was toxic and it was ruining your life, and someone told you you're giving up, would you consider giving up, or would you consider, hey, I'm meant for better, I'm meant for more, and because of that, I'm moving on from this.
So, you've talked a little bit about your conversation with your friends that were present throughout your journey with redefining your relationship with alcohol. You mentioned like alcohol personified as a friend you outgrew, and people saying that you were giving up on alcohol. I found that personification of your relationship with alcohol very interesting. And I wanted to know a little bit more about what you think the narrative amongst your friends was and the narrative in our community is around this sort of journey with redefining relationships with alcohol, and what conversations do you think are actually happening in the community around this?
Yeah, I know for sure. Personally, I didn't get too much of that, which is great. Everyone's been really supportive. I think the biggest thing for people was the shock because I used to be, and I used to be proud of this, but I used to be one of the ones that used to drink the most out of my friends, family circle. And I would be probably the last person people would think that would stop drinking. So there was just a lot of initial shock. People just thought it was a phase, right? Okay, maybe he's just taking a month or two off. But then when I started not drinking on celebrations or birthday parties, then it was like, wow, like Sunny's really doing this. There was a little bit of awkwardness with some people because a lot of the relationship did revolve around that. I think one thing is People think you have to hit rock bottom, right? Lose the job, be on the street, divorce, no one talking to you, and obviously those do push people to wanna stop drinking, but it doesn't always have to get to the point. And I think the other thing is too, it's not like it's too socially accepted. It's almost like the person that doesn't drink is almost the weird person in a way, generally speaking. Um, and I think even it's so associated with celebrations, hangouts, talks, and to some extent it's shaped as, hey, if you're a man if you drink this kind of alcohol or you have those kind of beers, right? So it's associated with that. And for a person to stick out and say, I don't want to drink anymore, it's scary. I get it. There's a lot of fear around, are you going to lose people? Or are people going to make fun of you? Or, I don't feel like these conversations are happening enough. And it actually makes it harder for a lot of people. But it's also, I feel like a lot of those same people probably are struggling themselves, but they'll never come forth with it. So yeah, I feel like it is hard in our community to take that route if you do decide to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that your conversation around masculinity being tied to the ways in which you end up participating in celebrations with alcohol and that being like a socially accepted portion of life in our community is very interesting. You touched on people can be struggling with this and not come forth unless like they've hit rock bottom and there's a very obvious portion of the community that can see that you've hit rock bottom and therefore it makes sense almost that you stop drinking. But anywhere where you might be struggling internally but not outwardly, it's a little bit harder for people to wrap their brains around. Why do you think that men in the community specifically end up struggling to open up that emotional part and have conversations before they hit the rock bottom that everyone can see?
If you just look at in a general sense with mental health, men already struggle to talk about emotions, so their struggles, right? There's like always this image that a lot of men subscribe to, that they have to have it all together, they have to be strong, they have to be tough, right? And if you're saying that you're struggling with alcohol, it is a vulnerability, right? You're exposing yourself. It's hard because it's almost like you're weak. Why can't you control your drinking? Why can't you handle it? So people don't make it easy for each other to want to have these conversations. And I think there's also a lot of humor. I don't know if humor is the right word, but for me, like when I was having these blackouts and stuff, I guess it was like, oh, Sunny blacked out yesterday. He was so drunk. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was. And it's like funny, but then it's like, when you zoom out, it's really not funny, and it's just like it's like kind of publicized in like movies or TV shows, right? Like the drunk guy and the blackout guy, and I'm sure people have experienced that. Like just because people have experienced that doesn't mean they have an issue with drinking. Like I'm sure that's happened one time or another to people who don't struggle with it, but then when it's repeatedly happening, then it's very hard because these are the things that we tend to laugh at or make fun of, but rarely will anyone ever be like, hey, like I've seen in multiple times, is everything okay? I think it just makes it harder. And I don't know, for me, I think it was a little bit of a cover up too of, it is funny. Really, it wasn't funny and I had a problem, right? It's certainly not easy and it makes it very hard. And it's very sad because a lot of people not only suffer in silence when it comes to mental health, but then they also suffer in silence with their alcohol usage.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I think your point about people will see you struggle a couple of times, but it's like in this idea of humor instead of, oh, I've seen this thing a couple of times. I'm reaching out. Are you okay? Do you need my support in something? What do you think along those lines it looks like to actually support someone and reach out to them and give them care in that moment?
Yeah, I think it's important to rely on your close circle. You don't need to announce it to the world. If you have to lie about it, lie. Like for me personally, when I did it, my goal was, this is the most important thing to me. I'm going to treat me being sober like a baby. This is my baby and I got to protect it at all costs. And if that means I'm going to lose some people, I was willing to take that risk. My wife is very supportive of that. She was someone I could always count on because I'm like, I don't know who's going to be willing to stand with me on this move. Will you be my guidance? And that's really all it took, was that one person. Fortunately for me, a lot of people were supportive after the fact. But again, I didn't know that in the beginning. So I think it's always important to just talk with one or two people that you have full trust in, and people who are in those situations have had people throughout their lifetime say to them, your drinking is pretty excessive. I had people along the way, some friends and family, not everyone, but some say to me like, you should really look after that. And I'd be like, oh man, it's okay, relax, it's just partying. But then there was a few of those people when I did stop drinking, they were so proud and happy. And like, I told you all these years ago, Sonny, you didn't listen. I'm like, yeah, I know I didn't. So I'm sure we all have a few of those people in our lives. And if we don't, it's important that you do find someone within the community or on social media. There's a lot of groups as well that you can join. But I think all it takes is having that one trusted person.
I think something that you mentioned in that was your wife and how she supported you in this time in your life and made sure that you had the resources and someone like standing with you to make that transition, even if others weren't necessarily there with you in that transition. What do you think about women specifically, whether it be wives or mothers, them supporting particularly their partners or their kids in this sort of relationship with alcohol and these changing relationships with alcohol in the community?
Yeah, I think it's very key because I always say this that there's so much focus on stop drinking, stop doing drugs, but no one really will ask the question the why, right? I personally feel like if someone is drinking, there's a reason, right? If it's excessive, there is a reason. There's something going on underneath. So I think for anyone supporting, whether it be a wife, a partner, a mother, anyone, it's very important that you understand why someone may be drinking rather than just saying, hey, you need to stop drinking and just tough it up. Like that's going to make it actually harder for the person. And one of the things that worked for me, which I was a little worried about too, was telling my wife, hey, there'll be times where, think about it, I had alcohol in my life for from 19 to 33, and now I'm going to be removing it out of my life. I'm going to struggle at times. I'm going to think about it, and doesn't mean I want to start drinking, but I'm like, I need you to be aware. I'm going to have these like times where I'm triggered and I need support. Can you do that? Because initially my thought was like, okay, she's going to just think I can't handle it, but I'm like, no, this is a part of the journey. I think it's important that when you have that trusted person or people, to let them know what you need, right? There's so much work involved, and it's important that you lean on those people and also normalize that you're gonna have these thoughts creep up sometimes. Sometimes when I'm driving, I pass a liquor store, it flashes my mind, but I'm not gonna act on that thought. But obviously, some people do get to that point where they will act on it. But I think in the past, I would have beat myself up and said, Sonny, what's wrong with you? Why are you thinking about it? But hey, you got to think about it. Like, it was a part of your life for so long. Your brain's not going to just forget about it like that.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on the same topic. So I think it's really great that you communicated what you needed from your wife in this moment of difficulty for you. And I know from like kind of other conversations we've had in my own like day to day, I think people are, especially partners, they're more than willing to help out in these instances. I think ultimately partners, they want to see you do well. But I think in the same token, sometimes they're also affected by situations that they may not be directly impacted by. So I'm just curious, and you don't have to answer this. Did your wife go through any difficulties with you going through your sobriety transition?
Not the transition necessary, but obviously, like, leading up to it, the biggest thing for me was the loss of credibility in the sense that I would tell her, like, hey, don't worry, I'm going to go out tonight. I'm only going to have a few. But then there'd be times where I'd be able to meet that promise, but there'd be a lot of times I didn't. And that really put to damage our relationship. And she couldn't trust me because I would say, yeah, don't worry, I've learned now. I've learned. And she's, what have you done differently? Oh, this time I'll drink Gatorade in between, or drink water. I'll only have beer. I tried so many things, and then it just say, talk to your doctor, talk to a therapist, take medication. I tried it all, and it just got to a point where I'm like, damn, like, I don't want to, not only do I want to continue to put myself through this hell, I don't want to do that to her either, right? I want her to be able to rely on me no matter what. She even told me from Monday to Thursday, 100% you're reliable. When it comes to Friday, Saturday, you're probably the least reliable person, because I know if I'm with you or you're out, you're probably drunk, and if I need you to pick me up or drive me somewhere, you can't. And you went from one of the least reliable people to the most reliable. I was like I said, I was hitting a wall, and I'm like, something needs to change. And what I was trying to change was like trying to salvage a relationship when really it should have been like, how can I end this relationship with alcohol? I was trying to work on the wrong thing, and I wish I had, honestly, I wish I had done it before. Like, even though I haven't drank in 15 months, it's amazing. I honestly wish I had done it like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because this life is so much better.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that experience and then also speaking on the ways in which your wife had supported you throughout this entire time. I think we see this often, as Harpreet was saying, where women in our community do end up supporting their partners in these times and their sort of emotional labor being a part of this journey also. And that's often unsaid. It's often not as acknowledged. And I appreciate you talking about that. You've talked a lot about the interplay of mental health in the community and also alcohol and your journey towards sobriety and also the people that you work with's journeys. I think along that line, what do you think emotional strength looks like for men today? And how do you think that's shown up for you, for people that you work with? How do you think that it should show up for people in the community?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think honestly, as much as it contradicts what I just said, that I wish I had done this sooner, but I don't think I would have been capable enough to do it sooner had I not worked on my health, gone to therapy, developed my confidence, developed just who I am as a person and being confident being that person. Because if I wasn't confident being me, I would be so worried about people pleasing. And if I was worried about people pleasing, I would feel like, okay, if I give up drinking, no one's going to want to hang out with me. But with this, I was like, no, I gotta stay true to me. The people that love me and want to be around me will be there for me. And then the confidence piece of boundaries, right? If I didn't have the confidence to set boundaries with people, I don't think I'd be able to go through this process of saying no. I've been asked a few times when I go out, when I like go to public places or like people that don't really know my journey, then and it requires the ability to have strong boundaries and say no to people. And if people ask you and you don't want to share, hey, I just don't want to drink, right? Like, as much as I'm open about this on this platform, there'll be times where I'm just out somewhere and I don't really feel like sharing. I'm just here to hang out. I don't feel like doing like a whole story. Unless someone asks me, I will. But there's times where I don't want to go deep because I'm just there to have fun and just kick back. But this all wouldn't be possible if I didn't believe in myself and trust in myself and have the confidence to do this. So I think working on yourself and on your mental health plays a big role in maintaining being sober. And I think like when it comes to emotional strength, I think it's important for everyone to know that it's not just about having it all together and being strong and being perfect and being successful. We're human. We're gonna slip up. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna be times when we're hurting. We're in pain. We're not feeling good, and that's where you gotta rely on those people. You develop a circle, and I'm not just saying like the people that you have, because we all have like family and friends, but not everyone's suitable for talking about mental health, right? I always use this example with people I work with, and I'm like, okay, your mom loves you, but if you're gonna open a business and your mom knows nothing about business, would you go talk to her about it? And no, they wouldn't, because she doesn't have that understanding. It's the same thing when it comes with mental health and talking about your emotions and getting help and being vulnerable. You don't have to do that with everyone. And sometimes, unfortunately, the people close to us, family, siblings, they're not always the best people to do that with. Just to wrap up this question, I want people to consider this. Look at it this way. So, the way I used to approach situations was, holy, this is tough. I'm devastated. I'm shooken up. But I gotta shut up, stop being a little wimp, tough it up, and come back stronger. That was my self talk and my mindset. Now it's gone to, okay, you know what? This is tough. Why is it tough? What's it making me feel like? I feel a little insecure. I feel a little scared. I feel a little uncertain. I feel a little hurt. Okay, I gotta feel this. But once I'm done feeling this situation, best believe I'm coming back stronger. So it's being a little more gentle in that approach, but being aggressive in the right way. Not being aggressive at yourself, but being aggressive at the situation. So I've really changed my approach, and I feel like that is true emotional strength, is being able to sit with the emotions and still come out stronger.
I know you've talked about what emotional strength looks like for you and for the people that you work with. When you think about our community as a whole, what Do you think that young boys, people that necessarily aren't on a transition from alcohol use or necessarily don't have that experience yet, what do you think emotional strength can look like for them, and what are the resources that you think they can think about?
Yeah, no, very, very good question. I think it's a proactive approach is important. I think if you have struggles, whether it's in your household, school, just with yourself, talk about it. Don't hold it in. Don't bottle it up, because that is one of the greatest causes of turning to things like alcohol. And lean on trusted people. There's so many different resources out there in terms of like online. Like all you have to do is look. But what I would say is, if you feel there's something in your life right now that is uncomfortable and it's impacting you, and you don't feel really safe talking about it with family, like, it's okay. Talk to someone you trust. For me, being a boy early on, especially when my parents divorced, the only way I really knew how to express myself was cry. And a lot of people would say, hey, don't cry, it's going to be okay. And then what that taught me was, like, don't express your emotions, hold everything in. And then I did that for my entire life. And the first time I really emotionally started expressing myself was in like my mid-20s, and it was as a result of being really drunk. It was the only time I would do that, and I didn't know that it was my mind trying to get this out. I would just say, oh yeah, I was just drunk, not a big deal. And I feel like if I had talked about a lot of the struggles, the bullying, my parents' divorce, like, I never ever talked about it until that therapy session only 6 years ago.
So I actually didn't know that the therapy session you were talking about had happened 6 years ago, and you've only been 15 months sober. So I think that's really interesting because it really goes to show like how lengthy this process can be, and also, even though it is a lengthy process, it's a worthwhile process because look at where you are now. And also on that note, congratulations on the 15 months sober. It's not a small accomplishment. So I guess as a community member, we're very proud of you. It's like a great thing that you're doing for yourself. So I'm just curious. So you've been 15 months sober. When did you start your coaching, and how did you actually get to this point where you wanted to coach other people?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, you're right. It's definitely a journey. The coaching started in 2017. That's where, again, it just started as a hobby. I was just like, I'm really passionate about this. I'm going to create an Instagram account. And I created one in 2017 and just started posting quotes. I think that's when Snapchat was really popular. So I would do like Snapchat videos. And then people would be like, are you trying to do like a TED Talk or something? And I was like, no, I'm just sharing like my experience. So I was going through that whole phase and helping, just showing up on Instagram. And then eventually I was like, maybe I should do a workshop, because being in human resources, I was used to doing presentations and I didn't enjoy them as much as I do now, as much as I enjoy speaking now. But I started to do that. And then I would have people come up to me and be like, can I hire you as a coach? I just feel that this is like the greatest joy I have in my life, is when I'm up there speaking or coaching a client. Like, this, there's something that this gives me that nothing else in this world does.
First of all, that's like truly impressive. It's also very interesting that while you were on your journey to sobriety, you were still doing these speeches. So I think it like speaks to the fact that a lot of times when people are not their healthiest, they still want to help others be healthy, which I think is is always such an interesting dichotomy to me, because I'm like, oh, people, even when they themselves are depleted, they still want to give to others, which I think is always like very commendable. I'm just curious, what's like your favorite thing about coaching, and also what's something that you think is really challenging about coaching as well too?
I think the greatest joy for me is just being able to see the change on that person. Hey, like, I really can live a better life. Like, things can get better, because I was in such a spot in my life where I just thought, this is the cards I've been dealt. Life is not going to get any better. It just sucks. And to be able to overcome that, because my mindset was always like, hey, either the only way you can succeed in this life is if you have talent, and if you don't have it, then you're not going to succeed. But then as I was going on my journey, I was like, I don't have the best talent, but I have this drive, I have this work ethic, I have this willingness to want to be better. And it's really what I instill in a lot of people, that hey, your life can get better. And just seeing the transformations in a lot of people I work with, it's really life changing. Just seeing the impact on people is great, because they just thought that, hey, this is how my life is. Like, the pain I'm feeling I can never talk about, but being able to instill that confidence in them to you push through that stigma that there is and get that help and become more emotionally aware. It's just, yeah, it's just an awesome feeling. I think the hardest thing for me is trying to, as much as I like to be personalized with them, the hardest thing for me sometimes is saying, I know there's so much more meant for you. Like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And obviously in the coaching sessions, I don't want to be doing that. I want to guide them where they want to go. And I'm basically, like I would say, I'll get in the car with you, you drive, and then we can assess each exit. I can tell you which exit's good, which is better, and you decide where to go. But sometimes in my mind, I'm like, I already know the perfect exit for this person, or at least I think. So sometimes holding back from that and taking away, that is hard. And then being tied to people's outcomes, right? Because I want everyone to succeed. And unfortunately, it doesn't always happen because for whatever reason, they're not able to stay on track with the kind of goals that we've set, or they just don't feel like it's something they can do. And I'm like, did I let that person down? Could I have done better? So I would say those are the two biggest struggles I face, but it's still worth it.
So I'm just curious, where do you hope that your coaching or just your platform in general, where do you see it going? What impacts do you want to make in the future? What do you have going on in terms of your plan, or is that on the down low?
No, not the down low. This year, I've taken a really more strategic approach on speaking. My main focus this year is doing speaking events, speaking engagements for organizations, my own speaking events, doing some for the community. I get to meet with more people in a shorter time frame. So that's where I'm really focused on. And the speaking aspect, the performance, that is something that I thoroughly enjoy. Obviously, both of them result in helping people, but there is something more about the speaking one where I wanted to make it my long-term big thing. But that's not to say that I've shut the door on coaching. But for now and the near future, speaking is the main thing I'm focused on.
My last question is, before I give it to Arlene, if she has any outstanding questions, is if anyone that's listening right now, what's one message that you would want to communicate to them if you could just summarize this whole episode?
I would say if you're struggling with something, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to get that help. It can get better. It can certainly get better. And as I mentioned, you don't have to share it with the whole world. You can start in small steps. But the main thing is look after yourself, get better, because these things that we hold in our mind, I always say to people, either you address your emotions or they will address you. And that will come in the result of resentment towards others, anger towards others, making decisions that are not good for you. So it's very important that the struggles that you're facing, to sit with them, acknowledge them, and take action, right? Whether that's communicating better in your relationships, whether that's cutting things out, or whether that's making lifestyle changes, or whether that's learning from those mistakes. Get the help, get the guidance, because honestly, you feel more like yourself, you feel happier, you feel like the weight of the world is off your shoulders. My hope is through learning through my experiences, someone like me, like a brown guy talking about these things, talking about emotions and alcohol, I hope it doesn't have to take you as long and you can learn from my experiences, my mistakes, my lessons, my wisdom, because it's worth it. It's worth it. Mental health exists for us all, and the more we deny it, the harder we're going to make life.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the way that you've wrapped up this conversation is truly beautiful. Often we talk about reaching out for help because you owe it to other people, but it's really nice to hear you talk about you yourself are just valuable enough and you owe it to yourself to reach out for help. And addressing your emotions is really important throughout that entire process. The way that you talked about your journey, about the ways in which you are having these conversations within the community, and then the sort of overall like ways that you've contributed because of your own experience is, I think, really beautiful, and not a lot of people are able to give back the way that you do. And so just as people that are having these conversations and are excited about these conversations, we really appreciate what you're doing. There's no question at the end of that, but if you have any parting thoughts, you're welcome to share them. We really do appreciate all the things that you're doing for the community.
Thank you. That means a lot. And again, thanks for inviting me here today and having this conversation. Like I said, I would have been scared to tell one person, let alone a podcast that's going to be released to everyone. So it just goes to show the kind of growth that you can have, and nothing's ever impossible. Like, things can get better, honestly, if you put in the work, believe in yourself, and work on those struggles and actually face them and not just leave them in the dark. You can certainly improve your life, especially with the right people and the right guidance. My Instagram is Sunny C Coaching, and I post a lot of my videos. So you'll see a lot of like my speaking events, past videos, quotes. So definitely check me out. And if you want to reach out and talk, same thing as well. I also have a Instagram group where I share a little more earlier content. So if I'm like posting something or I have an event going on, I usually share it in that group before I share it with the rest of the Instagram followers. So yeah, definitely reach out, and looking forward to connecting with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best. Again, 15 months, such a great thing you're doing. We're excited to see where it goes as well too.
Thank you for joining Saath, the Asra podcast. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe or follow our social media at asra.now so you never miss an episode.
We would love to know what you think about today's episode. Please leave us a comment or send us a direct message. If you have any suggestions for future podcast guests, please fill out the Google form on our website or in the episode description. If you'd like additional information or resources in Punjabi or in English, please visit the ASRA website at www.asranow.ca. Thank you.